This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Good evening, hello, and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. My name is Kathryn Taylor. I'm delighted to be here with my special guest tonight, Claire Saxon. Claire is a biology teacher and pastoral leader in an all-girls selective school.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Late Late Show. My name is Kathryn Taylor and I am delighted to be here tonight with my guest Claire Saxon. Claire is the head of year at a selective girls' school in Buckinghamshire where there are 1,300 students approximately. She started teaching in 2001, teaching biology, and she has done a bit of chemistry and physics as well throughout her career. She has had all kinds of departmental roles, and as a lead practitioner, Claire has supported coaching and teaching and learning, and also worked on curriculum development for a short period before taking on her current pastoral role. Now, today we are going to be discussing the challenges and joys of teaching girls, very able academically, and we're going to be thinking about how to best support and develop their academic skills and confidence in order for them to thrive. Claire, are you there? I'm just going to try and bring you into the studio. How are you, Claire? Can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you. Good evening.
Oh, fabulous. Well, it's really lovely for you to join me this evening on our show, and welcome to the studio. I've just been giving a bit of information to our listeners about you, but I wonder if you could maybe fill in a few gaps. You've been teaching since 2001, and you're a specialist in biology, and in your bio to me, you said splatterings of chemistry, which sounds rather feisty. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. Hi, thank you for having me. I've been teaching for 25 years, I think it is now. I don't know where the time has gone. I started off life as a biology teacher with, like I said, splatterings of chemistry and maybe a little bit of physics every now and then. And I've done a range of roles since I began my career as a teacher, some of which departmental, some of which were delving into, like, dipping my toe into the world of curriculum, not for very long. And now I've landed in the world of pastoral. I'm a head of year 13 at a selective girls' school in High Wycombe, and I've been doing this role for the head of year 13 role now for 2 years.
Excellent. And, have you always worked in single sex education, or have you done a bit of different settings across your career?
Yeah, I've this is the first time I've been in a single sex setting. I've been in state mixed settings in the past, comprehensive settings. That was a difference for me to join a single sex setting. And that's what I did about 5 or 6 years ago. I converted.
And I just, sorry, Claire, I got a little bit of feedback on your line. Is the phone sort of flat? I don't know if it's rubbing against your hair or something. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. The phone is flat, and I've got my earphones in. So
all right, don't worry at all. I just could hear a little bit of a scratching there. There's absolutely no problem at all. No, that all sounds really, really brilliant. But I wonder if you could sort of tell us a bit about, because I know that you're quite into your research, and I know that you're quite into developing the best as a best practitioner you possibly can do by sort of engaging in the latest research and pedagogical things like that. I wonder if you could just talk us through what's motivated you to be so research engaged, and what's motivated you to really delve into how girls can be made more confident and motivated in their academic lives?
Sure. So when I joined the single-sex school, I think what struck me was that as a reflective practitioner, I felt that all my pedagogy toolkits that I normally used in a mixed setting were not quite hitting the mark in a single-sex setting. So I felt a slight dissatisfaction with myself. And I thought to myself, come on, you can do better than this, and you can do better for your students. So I also felt quite strongly that the students' perceptions of what success looked like could have been elevated further. So I thought, well, how do I drive forward a change in my own practice in order to be able to change these perceptions with the young people in front of me and give them better skills in order to prepare them for life beyond secondary school. So part of that really was why I wanted to delve deeper into my own kind of practice and my own CPD in order to drive forward this sort of change and be able to change for the better, hopefully.
No, well, I mean, I'm sure, because we all do want to try and improve continuously, which is easier said than done. But it's quite another thing, I think, to really find the time to do it. And I know that you have spent some time really sort of getting to grips with it. But I wonder if you could articulate for us, when you say it was a different context and your teaching wasn't quite hitting the mark, what would you say was one of the main issues there?
I think, as I was saying, being in a single-sex school, there are differences to being in a mixed school, and the dynamics that you see in the classroom is altered, and there are changing dynamics in a girls' setting compared to a mixed setting. And I felt that although I was really strong on, developing positive relationships in the classroom, I felt that there was more than just the relationship between, the teacher and the student. It was, I discovered that there were more relationships to delve into, such as how the students relate to each other, to other teachers, to their form teacher, to the work in front of them. And that kind of made me think even further and deeper about, well, what is it that I'm doing in my own practice that is helping to support those and build those positive relationships that they've got with completely everything.
So, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you think that girls perhaps do have a more relational learning style? Is it just different to,
Yeah, I think you're right. It's less, I suppose, contractual. It's more about, how they feel about a subject, how they feel about the teacher. And, and I found that a really strong emphasis going into a girls' school setting. And I think that's the one thing I think I really kind of grabbed hold of me. And I thought, wow, yeah, this is something really different to being in a mixed school, for sure. Yeah.
No, that's really brilliant. I'm going to just play our messages, and when we come back, we're going to really start to get into some of the things that you found and some of your experiences that you've been through. So I'm just going to mute you for a moment, and we'll speak and pick up our conversation in just a few minutes.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Meet USA Study, your one-stop platform for guiding students through their college application journey. Access up-to-date resources on universities, programs, scholarships, and application requirements, all in one place. Get easy-to-access tools, personalised timelines, expert tips, application templates, and exclusive webinars with admissions officers to help your student stand out. Visit usastudy.co.uk or call Phil at 0800 612 8271 because every student deserves the opportunity to shine with USA Study.
Hey education changemakers, ready for something special? It's Bet Show's 40th anniversary and we're throwing a free celebration just for you. Join us at London Excel from January 22nd to 24th to connect, learn and be inspired. Picture this, 300 plus speakers who truly get it, 600 cutting-edge edtech companies and all the fresh ideas you need to make 2025 your best year yet. So why wait? Head to uk.betshow.com, grab your free ticket and come celebrate with your peers. Because this is for you. See you at Bet.
And we are back. I'm delighted again to be joined by Claire Saxon. She's the head of year at Selective Girls School and she teaches science as a biology specialist. She is currently an experienced pastoral leader supporting girls to fulfill their potential. We'll be picking up our conversation in just a moment, but I just want to remind you, listeners, please do remember if you're listening in live and would like to join us either live to post some questions in the chat for me to answer or to pass on to Claire, or if you'd like to call in and speak to us, please download the Podbean app and visit ttradio.org and click listen live on the homepage. That should take you directly to the show. There you can post your comments and ask your questions to join in our conversation or call in and speak to us live. You can call in by pressing the icon at the top of the screen on your phone's app. Click this and I will be able to connect you and welcome you onto the show. But before we get to any Q&A from our listeners, Claire, I'm going to bring you back into the studio. Excuse me. And I wonder if you could just tell us, what do you think are the primary factors? I know we've spoken a little bit about this already in the relational nature that you've noted about girls, but what else would you say influences their academic confidence, perhaps in a negative or a positive way?
Sure. I think as part of being reflective and looking at the groups that I've looked at in particular, I've noticed that students who tend to have a strong sense of belonging in the classroom, in my biology classroom, for instance, feel that they are part of the whole class learning and a part of that journey. And that tends to have a really strong impact on academic confidence and academic trust, basically trusting themselves. And so then they feel like they're opening themselves up to being able to learn, a new idea, have those vulnerable conversations that says, you know what, I really don't know what I'm talking about here, but I'm going to give it a go and I'm going to ask my peers if they can help me. And I think having that sense of belonging, which is also linked with the relational side of things, is really, really critical when it comes to girls learning. There was a book that I read, Meeting at the Crossroads by Brown and Gilligan, which talks about girls and adolescents as though they're dancing at the crossroads, not wanting to seem too clever, not clever enough, not trying too hard, being quiet, having a voice, and all the time trying to maintain these relationships without avoiding the risk of loneliness. So they've got a melting pot of all of these emotions, trying to get them, before they even think about academic confidence.
Yeah.
And it's just navigating through in your classroom and in your environment to try to support the young people in front of you to be able to have that love for learning.
I think that's really interesting what you're saying, because when you said trust, I just in my mind, I thought you were going to say trust in a teacher, but you actually said trust in themselves. And I think that's a really important point, because I think I say we all, but there is a societal influence at play here, isn't there? And there are views about, expectations of girls and women that we do internalize from our childhoods, and that they're quite pervasive and pernicious, I think. And it does, we don't want to be too, what's the word that people say, shrill. We don't want to be too confrontational. We don't want to, put ourselves out there, perhaps because we are worried that we'll be too much or too little. And I think you really encapsulated that there. I mean, especially in the sciences, do you feel that you're having to unpick social expectations and stereotypes before you can get going, or is that an ongoing process?
I think that's a really great point about picking up on sciences, and it's really important to be a successful scientist to be able to understand the scientific process, and that actually most scientists went through a series of failures in order to get a successful outcome, and the scientific process is about that. And it kind of encapsulates, using your words, that kind of, being able to take risks and challenges the stereotypes and the societal expectations that girls should be seen to be perfect, quiet, do well in coursework. And I think that's where sciences really challenge that expectation, and by kind of providing the opportunity for young girls in particular to be able to try to overcome these kind of expectations by taking risks in the classroom academically, and being able to not be quiet and not be perfect and make mistakes. So I think in science in particular, it's really, a really great opportunity for young girls to do that.
And I think, and this is a bit of a tricky question actually, because you've worked in a single sex school after you've worked in mixed comprehensives, but I wonder if you have a view on whether or not this is a more pronounced problem because you're able to unpick it because there aren't any boys there, or whether you think it, is it more exacerbated, or does it just sort of not arise because there's such a draw on the attention from other members of the class in a mixed setting?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because I was thinking about, the work I do, teaching in a single sex setting, and looking at the expectations that we already, the glass ceiling that we have for our girls is already pushed beyond, and we say, there's no limits on whether you can do STEM subjects, and actually our maths, physics, chemistry classes are, full. They're really high uptake. But then I think, well, is that an additional pressure, that because we're in a single sex setting, there is that pressure on girls to go, oh, I must do the STEM subjects because I'm in a single sex setting. And, and so I think there is that as well. And, it has become highlighted, when I was doing my, when I first started thinking about this, when I first started teaching in a single sex school. And you're right, it does get highlighted as a bit of an issue, and you think, oh, this wasn't what it was in the mixed setting. And I think that was one of the motivations for trying to draw out the reasons why, and what the differences were, and how we can kind of try to work out some strategies to help build girls' confidence in all areas.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I wonder if you could perhaps exemplify some of the strategies that you believe or have evidence for that does foster that confidence in those environments.
Yeah, so there's a number of strategies that I've been using, and I kind of make up my own names for some of these. So forgive me, they're not the technical terms that people probably might be used to. So one example is splurging, which I think people know as blurting, where students get a whiteboard and they splurge everything in their brain onto the whiteboard, and they do it together. And it's usually done as a prior knowledge or at the end of a topic to kind of work out how much they can retrieve. And then they use each other in the classroom. This is the critical part. They use each other by conducting a gallery walk, which is essentially a walk around the classroom. noticing what each other has written and trying to unpick, well, is that different to what I've written? Is that the same? And do I need to write that down on my board? And why did I forget it? And then they go back to their place and write everything down that they might have gaps on. And for me, when I spoke to my students about this, the verbal feedback was really strong in that they felt they really liked the low risk. They didn't use that term, but that was essentially, they were saying it was a low risk strategy of being able to share everyone's knowledge together to come out with a greater knowledge than they had at the beginning, which, you know, is what you want as a learner characteristic. Basically, you want students to be able to work together. And in particular, it was year 10, so 14-year-olds who you think, well, perhaps they might do this, but perhaps they might not, because they might feel that they don't want to expose themselves. But they really enjoyed this strategy in order to be able to find out what each other knew. And they really engaged in trying to help each other improve their learning. So that for me was a real success in improving engagement and confidence. And also getting the students to get up and move is always a good plan, I think.
Absolutely. And I'm really interested in the fact that you've talked about whiteboards and things like that. Do you think that there's anything in the impermanence of using a mini whiteboard or something like that that actually appeals to your students?
Absolutely. I think the nature of the whiteboard, I mean, the girls in the classes that I've been looking at in particular have this really strong relationship with their notes and with their what they look like. And two students in particular said to me, I really like my notes to be neat and tidy. They are my notes. They're not anyone else's. And I use them as revision. And so the whiteboards provide that avenue, that different avenue for students, for girls to make mistakes, to rub it out and to start again. And having reflected on this quite a lot recently, I'm now going to contradict myself. And say that in terms of perfectionism, I'm probably providing an avenue to actually endorse perfectionism here, because, you know, what I should be actually saying, you know, your notebooks are a scribble book. They're exactly that. They're for drafts. You can rub things out. You can cross things out. But I think as a starting point, it helps students to kind of write down what their learning looks like, so I can then see it. And then they can translate that a little bit better to each other and improve confidence. I think we're not there yet with the scribble books, but you never know. It could be
I think
soon.
that is so interesting. And I mean, I don't know. You want to get hold of someone, I don't know, does someone like Jocelyn Bell Burnell put her notebooks up on the internet that we can show them to, you know, this is, maybe hers is really neat, I don't know. But it's that kind of thing. I think that's so important to have a working book. And I know you don't teach art, but I'm wondering what some of these art notebooks look like, because there's got to be a dynamic process going on, and I wonder if there's things that could come from that scrapbooking that's kind of dynamic. I mean, I've just taken with that idea of a really, you know, show me your messy notes.
And that's what we want, isn't it? We, you know, our thought process is never usually linear. Well, mine isn't.
Definitely not mine, as you can probably tell.
So I think it's really important for students to be able to understand that, you know, your thoughts are not going to be nice and tidy in a box. They are going to be all over the place until you've really made your learning more concrete and then put them into order eventually. And so I think that's a really important part of developing that confident learner. And being able, and that takes quite a lot of high level skills and metacognition as well, I would imagine, to be able to be self-aware enough to say, you know what, this is good enough. And that's the critical term, I think. This is good enough. It doesn't have to be, you know, the neatest thing in the world. And highlighted titles and things like that. So
well, it's that kind of busy work, isn't it, as well? You know, where I don't know, do your girls do that thing where they like write the title? I think you know what I'm going to say. They write it and then they do like a big wavy flowery italics over the top, and then they highlight that as well. And you think that's the title. That should be like the quick bit, and you're still going after like 5 minutes. Just get onto the good stuff.
Just get onto the nitty gritty. And
I know boys that do that as well. So you know, it's an equal opportunities time wasting activity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I think the point you make about metacognition is a really, really good one, because you know, all of these are skills, aren't they, that need to be learned, and habits that need to be developed. You know, what role does positive reinforcement play in building these skills and abilities and confidence?
Well, I think that's an interesting question, because I think consistency is really important as well. Having a common approach between not only your own lessons, so each lesson it might be, okay, now we're going to do this reflection activity, doing it in the same way to reinforce the ideas that of evaluating the learning that has just taken place, and what are the next steps, but also evaluating what mistakes and what pitfalls there are, for example, in an exam question. Is really critical, and being able to do that across the whole school, I can envisage being really powerful, so that it enables girls in particular to be able to articulate where their mistakes are and what to do in order to improve. And so reinforcing this is absolutely critical, I feel.
No, it's that learning how to learn, isn't it? And I've been doing this, and I'm sure you have been doing this long enough to remember when that was kind of taught as a discrete subject. But you're laughing there. I think we've all seen that set of PowerPoints, haven't we? Yes. But in terms of you know, really embedding it, would you say it's something that you really had to deliberately include in your planning?
I think that's the word that's really critical here. I think deliberate planning, and it doesn't have to be discrete. It can be, but I think it's important to deliberately plan and deliver the skills, and be explicit with what skills are required in order to be able to access this high level reflection and thinking. And by doing that, hopefully over a period of time, students will be able to do this organically and recognize that, okay, I need to do this now. And it is about putting that deliberate plan in place initially, and then once the routines come into play, students should be able to access more easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's that scaffolding and modelling and all the things that we know about what makes good teaching and learning, but it's really applying that to the meta learning as well as the content, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's really brilliant, Claire. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a few minutes after the news.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Meet USA Study, your one-stop platform for guiding students through their college application journey. Access up-to-date resources on universities, programs, scholarships, and application requirements, all in one place. Get easy-to-access tools, personalised timelines, expert tips, application templates, and exclusive webinars with admissions officers to help your student stand out. Visit usastudy.co.uk or call Phil at 0800 612 8271, because every student deserves the opportunity to shine with USA Study.
Hey Education Changemakers, ready for something special? It's Pet Show's 40th anniversary and we're throwing a free celebration just for you. Join us at London Excel from January 22nd to 24th to connect, learn and be inspired. Picture this, 300 plus speakers who truly get it, 600 cutting-edge edtech companies, and all the fresh ideas you need to make 2025 your best year yet. So why wait? Head to uk.betshow.com, grab your free ticket and come celebrate with your peers. Because this is for you. See you at Bet.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Schools Week covered a story about a software glitch which wiped Ofsted inspectors' evidence during almost 200 inspections over a 3-year period. The glitch only resulted in revisits on 4 occasions. The report, shared with Schools Week by Ofsted themselves, found that of 26,431 inspections conducted using electronic evidence gathering between February 2021 and May 2024, there were 191 where inspectors reported evidence was lost. Whilst Ofsted say that 4 incidents resulted in inspectors returning to gather extra evidence, it was confident that the judgment is secure in the other 187 cases. Ofsted has refused to name the establishments affected. The electronic system replaced pen and paper in 2019, as the inspectorate said it would better review and synthesise notes and improve security. Schools Week revealed last year that the system was presenting issues, and Chief Inspector Sir Martin Oliver commissioned a rapid review. Ofsted policy states that where the electronic system fails to record and save evidence, inspectors should recapture the salient points from memory as soon as possible after they detect that any notes are missing. The review found that in 182 of the 191 cases, the inspectors affected had followed this policy. In the 5 cases where this was not done, other notes recorded by the inspector or colleagues in the inspection team supported the judgment. Critics, however, have told Schools Week that this isn't good enough. The watchdog has since confirmed it is in the process of moving the electronic system to a new version, which offers improved offline capability and is expected to perform well with intermittent and low connectivity. The BBC covers plans by government to reintroduce a piece of legislation aimed at protecting free speech on university campuses. The Higher Education Freedom of Speech Act, which proposed fines for universities failing to uphold freedom of speech, was passed in 2023. Its implementation was stopped after Labour's election in the summer. This was due to concerns that the law was potentially damaging to student welfare. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson told Parliament that the government would be progressing with the legislation, but with significant changes. Phillipson said academic freedom was much more important than the wishes of some students not to be offended. However, the government says it will seek to remove the part of the Act that allows people to sue universities that fail to uphold their duty to protect freedom of speech. The National Union of Students welcomed the announcement, saying the threat of complex legal responsibilities was no longer hanging over them. Further comments can be found on the BBC website. The Guardian features a story about curriculum changes proposed in Italy. Bible reading, Latin learning, and learning poetry off by heart could all return to primary and middle schools as part of a revamp, but this has been criticised as retrograde and nostalgic. Education Minister Giuseppe Valditara gave an interview to an Italian newspaper, Il Giornale, saying that children must discover a love of reading and learn to write better. Another member of the Education Department told a news agency that Christianity's sacred text would be present in some form. According to reports in the Italian press, reading lists could also include books by a variety of 19th and 20th century Italian poets and writers, although space would be made for other writers from across the globe. Political opponents have criticised the proposals as supporting right-wing ideology and confusing authoritarianism with authority. Students have also protested against the proposals, calling them repressive. Finally, pupils at a school in Solihull are being offered the chance to not have homework for 2 weeks, but only if they use their smartphones less and read a book instead. The BBC Radio West Midlands newsfeed says that staff at an independent primary and secondary school have welcomed the scheme aimed to help pupils start the new year with less screen time. Pupils said they were enjoying the change, whilst the head teacher hoped the initiative was about bringing balance between screen time and homework. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
Brilliant, thank you. And we are back now in the studio with Claire Saxon, who has been really sharing some very interesting pieces of information about her experience building academic confidence in her biology students and girls' education throughout her time at the single-sex school where she's been working for the last few years. And we talked a bit earlier, we joked about trying to get hold of female scientists' messy notebooks, but I think there's a serious point there in terms of representation. And I just wondered, what would you say? I mean, in terms of the curriculum, there are lots of men who have made scientific discoveries. I mean, there are some notable women as well. But when it comes to representation, what have you sort of tried to do to really highlight exemplars that your students might identify with?
I think that's really interesting. And since working in a single sex setting, I have really consciously and deliberately tried to seek out a range of scientists that are not just the typical male scientists that we might see. And there's one that I show quite frequently, and I tell the story of Frances Kelsey, and there's a lovely TED Ed YouTube video about her and how she was the forerunner of clinical trials, and she stood her ground against a huge number of male proponents who wanted her to pass thalidomide as an acceptable drug at the time. And it's a really poignant and a really telling story at the time, because her name was Frances with an E. Many of the university admissions officers mistook her for a male, and that was the only reason why she ended up going to university, according to this video. So it's stories and anecdotes and narratives like that I think are really critical, that show young girls that, you know, that it's accessible, they can do this, and it's not like this hidden magic that they're not allowed to kind of have a go at doing. And by seeing themselves in the videos, I think that's really, really critical. And just by saying, well, actually, would you have done the same? And a lot of the girls I talk to go, well, yeah, you know, she was doing the right thing. And I was saying, well, even under that sort of pressure. So it is really, really important. And I do try to seek out different examples of scientists that really champion what we're looking for in terms of making, you know, enabling girls to push through the glass ceiling and the societal expectations that have been, you know, historically put forward onto them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in terms of individuals, have you found that any of your students require or benefit from, I know everybody would benefit from lots of, you know, coaching and mentoring, but is that something that you engage in with individuals or small groups, and do you think that makes a difference?
Sorry, could you just repeat that question?
Just
there's something going on with my phone at the moment.
Oh, right. Okay. Don't worry. Yeah. So it's to do with mentoring and coaching, either individuals or small groups, and whether you think that I mean, of course, we all benefit from the attention that you can get with talking things through with a person. But is that a strategy that you incorporate as your school, sort of the way it's set up in your pastoral role as well? Is that something that goes on?
For some reason, my phone is still not quite having, it's having a moment. I don't know whether we could...
Okay, do you want to disconnect and reconnect, and we'll come back to you in just a few moments?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Meet USA Study, your one-stop platform for guiding students through their college application journey. Access up-to-date resources on universities, programs, scholarships, and application requirements, all in one place. Get easy-to-access tools, personalised timelines, expert tips, application templates, and exclusive webinars with admissions officers to help your student stand out. Visit usastudy.co.uk or call Phil at 0800 612 8271 because every student deserves the opportunity to shine with USA Study.
Hey education changemakers, ready for something special? It's Bet Show's 40th anniversary and we're throwing a free celebration just for you. Join us at London Excel from January 22nd to 24th to connect, learn and be inspired. Picture this, 300 plus speakers who truly get it, 600 cutting-edge edtech companies and all the fresh ideas you need to make 2025 your best year yet. So why wait? Head to uk.betshow.com, grab your free ticket and come celebrate with your peers. Because this is for you. See you at Bet.
Hello?
Oh, can you hear me? You're right there, Claire.
Oh, hello. Yes, I can
Hello.
hear you.
Sorry, that was me not pressing a button.
So sorry about that. My phone must have had something. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely fine. So we were talking about mentoring, weren't we? And I wonder if you could just make a few comments about the benefits, the approach, both academically and pastorally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the great thing about what we've been doing is that we have two groups of mentoring. So we've got student mentoring at the moment, and there is also academic mentoring that is with a non-teacher, non-subject specialist. So the value of this, that students feel able to open up even more, and the non-specialist has a great expertise in study skills and giving advice and unpicking the issues with the students in a non-judgmental way in which the students really relish and they open up. And there was one student in particular who built a really good relationship with the academic mentor, and she was able to help navigate conversations with her parents and also with her teachers, and the bright light and the eyes that shone afterwards were just incredible when she came back and she said, oh my God, I've just spoken to my teachers and it's just helped me so much, and my parents are now really, helping me. And then one student built who came to the mentor had fallen out with biology. And she, we said this to her, we said, you've fallen out with the subject, haven't you? And she goes, yes. And we said, well, what do you need to do to fall back in love with it? And she came back to us 2 months later with 2 assessments that were about 30% higher than what she had before. And she was just so excited about it. And so that makes, being able to carefully craft these partnerships and develop the relationships between the mentor and the mentee, and having the time time to have those conversations is really critical in building confidence, because they might not want to ask and admit to their teachers or their peers or even their parents that actually they don't really know how to study in that subject at A level. They've been doing what they've been doing for GCSE, and it worked for GCSE, but now the goalposts have absolutely changed, and they're kind of a little bit left at what they think is too late. And having this non-judgmental adult in the school environment is really critical for some students.
That's so important, isn't it? Because, you know, I see this a lot. I'm in a mixed school, but I do have one class which is all girls, and they have done very well at GCSE, and suddenly everything's harder, and you can tell that it does shake their confidence in a really kind of fundamental way. And it's very much about saying, this is normal, you're fine, it's okay, we're going to move forward together. But I think the point you raise about helping them to have those conversations at home as well, because, I mean, do you find that sometimes parents' helpfulness is not as helpful as it might be, shall we say?
I think there's always good intentions
Yes.
when parents are emailing or the messaging that they give, and there's always good intentions, and from that's the what I keep in the back of my mind. I think from our perspective, I think helping a young person to problem solve and to take control of a problem is really critical in developing that academic confidence for when they face something that might be a really huge problem. They'll be able to reflect back and go, actually, this problem that was slightly smaller last time, I can apply the same principles and get a positive outcome. And I think that's really critical for us to say, don't necessarily jump in straight away and say, I've got to fix this, because that kind of doesn't help, build that academic confidence of the young person, the students, really.
Yeah, and I just wonder, because when we're thinking about, academic confidence, self-confidence, self-belief and belonging, which have all been threads that have come through really strongly in our conversation this evening. We've talked a little bit about the academic and the kinds of activities you might do, and we've also talked a bit about the pastoral support that would be available. What about co-curricular things? Do you, for example, have clubs or competitions and things like that? And if so, how do you think those kinds of things support sort of the girls in their academic confidence and growth?
We've got a wealth of extracurricular clubs and competitions, sport, music societies, and we encourage all our girls to attend, to try them out when they come to us in year 7, and, try as many out as they can. We feel that the benefit of this is to not only build relationships outside of their classes and build their friendship groups, so they're not just kind of navigating in a small kind of circle, but it also helps to build a different identity, because in a highly selective academic environment, academic identity, it seems to be the only currency. And so by having this extracurricular, young people are able to develop a different identity and be able to share experiences with older students and have that kind of more guidance that they might not get if they didn't attend. And they also experience failures in an area of psychological safety. So it's critical to be able to have that opportunity and experience in order to then apply it in a classroom or more academic setting. And so we do absolutely encourage young people to attend clubs, enter competitions, and we take that side of our school life very seriously, because it's such a critical part of building the resilience and the kind of the resilient side of things, really.
I wonder whether you, and you may not have done, I'm just thinking out loud really, I wonder whether there's any, do you get student voice? Do they tell you how they're feeling? Is this something that you capture any data on at all?
So we, as a school, and many schools probably do this, we do capture student voice regularly, not only annually, but we have the House Council and School Council, and it's actually going to be on Thursday, but anyway, and we really strongly encourage students to advocate for themselves, and if they want to see change, to be able to bring up in a way that I suppose is what we call civil discourse, and being able to articulate their frustrations with a solution focused ethos, so that they're kind of not just saying here is the problem, but how can we all work together to come up with new ideas. And I think that is another great opportunity for students to see, actually, sometimes if you bring up an idea, it might not go through, but sometimes it does go through. And it's all about being able to accept perhaps unexpected, and being able to respond and react, which builds that kind of academic confidence again in the classroom.
No, I think that's really, really interesting, and I wonder, and this is perhaps a rather devil's advocate question, so indulge me, but I wonder, where does all of this go when they go off to university, when they go off to work experience or to get jobs? Do you think that they are, in their preparation for meeting the rest of the world, who maybe aren't as enlightened as they have been, do you know what I mean? Do you have relations with other groups in the community? Do you bring other schools in or other teachers in to see the work you're doing, or other community leaders for whom some of those stereotypical views might still be quite present?
I think what's really valuable about what we're doing in the single sex environment is that we are enabling and empowering girls to develop their confidence academically, but also their sense of belonging and their identity, so that when they do go into the world and to work, or or have to kind of look at their own well-being, then the students are kind of very well prepared and understand it doesn't matter what type of setting they go into, they know themselves well enough and their strategies in order to be able to manage themselves and be leaders and advocate for themselves strongly. You're right about developing this out into a wider context, and that's where we are working with other groups, and my message here today, but I think that's a really important part of talking about girls' education, and where the issues can lie in the world and what we're doing about it. But no, we haven't yet had anyone come in and talk to me about it yet.
No, it's just I've been listening to a book at the moment which is all about sort of prejudice and bias in the workplace in a very general sense, and the theme in that keeps coming up again and again about women finding themselves in catch-22, where like you were saying earlier, being on that crossroads of advocating for yourself without coming across as somebody who's too pushy, and I think things like that. And I think let's just say there's still work to do in the world.
Yes, absolutely. I think you're more than right there.
I mean, in terms of the things you've been doing, I'm going to put it out there and say, I think you're going to say you've noticed a difference, but could you articulate the difference that you've noticed since you've been doing these deliberate actions in your practice?
Sure. I think you're absolutely right. I have absolutely noticed a difference in that students are now organically using the skills that I've been building with them from the start of year 10, and they're able to what I call collaborate in a meaningful and authentic way, using each other and being able to drop the mask a little bit. It's still not fully dropped, to be fair, and there are times when it's like no. But I feel like the degree of engagement and cognitive engagement, I mean by that, is really starting to progress in the way that we think we would like. And there's still work to be done, like you said, in terms of, for example, note taking and what that might look like, and whether students are able to kind of detach themselves from like a set of PowerPoints. But I think this is something that I feel definitely is something in the school that we're embracing. And when other colleagues have come in to observe my practice, they've really given positive feedback about the impact it is having on their lessons. And one phrase my colleague said to me is, "You've changed my life with whiteboards."
Oh, wonderful. There you go.
So I thought, my work here is done. What more can I say?
Oh, well, that's something to, when they write your memoirs.
My legacy, yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. I mean, we're coming to the end of our time, and you've really shared some really inspirational things. So thank you so much for that. And I wonder if we could bring it to a close by just, if you were going to give a piece of advice, maybe you've got to lead an inset and they say, come back after the summer holidays, you're going to be leading the inset in September, and it's all about trying to build that confidence. What's your biggest piece of advice you think that would be really impactful, that people could implement quite quickly and see some results?
I think that there's a couple of things there. I think, first of all, it would be about trying to foster problem-solving skills. But I think trying the strategies, just try any of the strategies that we've been talking about, such as the splurge and the gallery walk, or the active note-taking, where one student listens for keywords and another student listens for describing. That's a really great one and quite an easy one to implement. And, one student, when I did this last year, she actually said to me, "Miss, that is like magic. I understand how to listen, because if I don't, my friend will then fail, or not fail, but she won't get the things that she needs." So that kind of paired note taking, I think we talked about, is really important. So if that's the one thing that you try, just try something that kind of takes students a little bit out of their comfort zones and gets them to engage more positively, even more in the learning that's taking place in your classroom, and getting that psychological safety is really critical as well.
That's so important, and I think psychological safety, that really is coming to the fore, and I hope that that's something that for our students and for our teachers we can really make sure underpins so much of what we do, because I think it's where the magic happens, isn't it? We've got to be able to feel safe to try, otherwise we can't really move forward. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Claire, for your time this evening. I'm just going to finish up by just letting our listeners know Claire is the head of year at Selective Girls School. She teaches science and biology as a specialist, and she is an experienced pastoral leader. And she's been talking to us tonight about supporting girls to fulfil their academic potential, grow in confidence, and really flourish in their learning. And that brings us to the end of tonight's show. Thank you so much to Claire for coming to the studio this evening and sharing your information with us. It's been so interesting, and I've really enjoyed talking to you about it. Please, many thanks for anyone who's joined us this evening. Please do remember there's TTR shows all week. If you go on to anywhere you get your podcasts, or TTR. I've messed that up. Sorry. I know Tom's listening. Sorry, Tom. Please go to the website and check it out. We've got so many really brilliant shows. Thanks again so much, Claire, for your time this evening. And I look forward to having you all back next week for more great CPD on TTR. Good night.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.